I am sitting in the middle of Plaza de Santa Ana in Madrid, Spain. It is nearly midnight here, and the air is perfect warm, dry, smelling faintly of roasted almonds and expensive perfume. I have a glass of Rioja in front of me, and for the first time in 6 months, my shoulders are down, away from my ears. I am finally, truly relaxed. Then, my phone buzzes. It isn't a text or a call. It is an Instagram notification. Someone I follow has just started a live video. I glance down, intending to swipe it away, but the thumbnail freezes my blood. It is my sister, Tiffany. She is wearing a white sequin dress, holding a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, and screaming into the camera. But that isn't what makes my stomach drop. What stops my heart is the background. The exposed brick wall. The 12-foot industrial windows. The custom matte black kitchen island I spent 3 years saving to install. Tiffany is in my loft in Chicago. The caption flashing across the bottom of the screen reads, "Finally bought my dream home, number new beginnings, number boss babe." I stare at the screen, watching her spin around my living room, spilling champagne on the hardwood floors. I just paid $4,000 to have refinished. She is smiling that wide, shark-like smile she reserves for her followers, telling 50,000 strangers she just closed on this property. I don't panic. I don't scream. I don't even call her. I just take a slow sip of my wine and smile. Because Tiffany doesn't know that I sold that loft to a billion-dollar tech corporation 2 weeks ago. And she just broadcasted her break-in to the entire world. Before I tell you what happens when a narcissist accidentally declares war on a billion-dollar legal team, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to see who's part of our squad today. To understand how my sister ended up committing a felony on a Tuesday night, we have to go back 2 weeks. I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room in downtown Chicago, signing my name to a stack of documents thick enough to stop a bullet. I didn't sell my loft on the open market. I didn't hire a realtor or host an open house with fresh-baked cookies. I sold it directly to my employer, Tech Fusion. I work as a digital art director for their global marketing division. And when they offered me the transfer to Madrid, it came with an executive relocation package. It is a corporate perk, usually reserved for C-suite executives. But I negotiated hard for it. The terms were simple. Tech Fusion bought my property at 10% over market value, $850,000, to expedite my move. The deal included a rent-back agreement, a standard clause allowing me to remain in the property for 14 days after closing to finalize my packing. But I didn't need 14 days. I needed to get away from my family. So, I packed 2 suitcases, left the keys on the granite countertop for the corporate cleaning crew, and boarded a flight to Spain 11 days early. Technically, the loft was vacant. Legally, it belonged to a multinational corporation. You might be wondering how Tiffany got in. She didn't break a window. She didn't pick the lock. She used a key. And this is where I have to explain the debt of existence. If you grew up in a normal family, you probably think of your home as your sanctuary. You think your possessions belong to you. But I didn't grow up in a normal family. I grew up in a family where my parents, Richard and Cynthia, viewed me not as a daughter, but as a resource. In our dynamic, Tiffany was the golden child, the star, the fragile princess who needed constant protection and praise. I was the scapegoat. But more than that, I was the supply. Psychologists call it the debt of existence. It is the silent, suffocating belief instilled in you from birth that because your parents gave you life, you owe them everything you ever achieve. My success wasn't mine. It was a communal reservoir for the family to draw from whenever Tiffany failed. Which was often. When I bought the loft 3 years ago, my mother didn't say, "Congratulations," she said. "This will be perfect for Tiffany's birthday party." When I got a raise, my father didn't say, "Good job," he said. "Now you can help your sister with her car payments." They demanded a spare key the week I moved in. "For emergencies," my father had said, his voice heavy with that specific brand of parental guilt that sounds like concern but feels like a threat. "What if you choke? What if there's a fire? We need access." Morgan, don't be selfish. 6 months ago, I asked for that key back. I told them I was changing my security system. My father looked me in the eye and told me he had lost it. He said he dropped it down a storm drain by accident. I knew he was lying. He knew I knew he was lying. But in families like ours, you don't call out the lie. You swallow it to keep the peace. I didn't change the locks because, deep down, a part of me was still too tired to fight them. I just assumed they would respect my space. That was my mistake. They didn't lose the key. They kept it, waiting for the moment I turned my back, so they could reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. They didn't see a sold property. They saw an empty stage for Tiffany's next performance. I stare at the phone screen, mesmerized by the train wreck unfolding in real time. On the live stream, the music in the loft has been turned up. It sounds like cheap techno, the bass distorting the microphone on Tiffany's phone. She is doing a spin now, holding the bottle of champagne by the neck like a club. Guys, look at this view, she screams, panning the camera toward the window. The window I specifically had treated with UV blocking film to protect the artwork. She stumbles. It happens in slow motion. Her heel catches the edge of the vintage Moroccan rug I left behind because it didn't fit in my suitcase. The bottle tilts. A glug of sticky, golden liquid splashes onto the floor. But it isn't just champagne. She's holding a glass of red wine in her other hand. It goes flying. The dark purple liquid hits the pail. White oak floorboards, the ones I paid a specialist crew $3,000 to sand and seal just 4 days ago, so they would be perfect for the corporate handover. The stain blooms across the wood like a gunshot wound. Tiffany just laughs. Oops, party foul. She giggles, not even bending down to wipe it up. Whatever. I'll get the cleaners to do it tomorrow. That is the moment the last tether snaps. The old Morgan, the daughter who owed a debt of existence, would have called our mother. I would have begged her to go over there. I would have sent Tiffany a frantic text telling her where the paper towels were. I would have absorbed the cost, the damage, and the disrespect, because that was my role. I was the janitor of their messes. But I am not in Chicago. I am in Madrid. And that is not my floor. I close the Instagram app. My hand is perfectly steady. I don't open my recent calls list to find my parents. Instead, I open my email and search for asset management. I find the number for Mr. Henderson, the director of corporate facilities for Tech Fusion in Chicago. It is barely 5 in the afternoon there. He answers on the second ring. This is Henderson. Mr. Henderson. This is Morgan Reynolds from the Madrid transition team. I say. My voice sounds strange to my own ears. Cool. Detached. Professional. I am calling to report a security breach at the Wicker Park property, the unit I vacated on the 14th. I hear the click of a keyboard on his end. The loft on Damon Avenue. That unit is listed as vacant. We have a cleaning crew scheduled for tomorrow morning. It isn't vacant, I say. I was just alerted via social media that there are intruders in the property. They appear to have accessed the unit illegitimately. They are currently drinking alcohol, moving furniture, and I just witnessed significant damage being done to the hardwood flooring. There is a pause, a heavy, corporate silence. Do you know these individuals? Miss Reynolds. This is the crossroads. This is the moment I can save them. I can say, it's my sister. Please just send security to ask them to leave. I can protect them from the consequences of their own entitlement one last time. I look at the mental image of the red wine soaking into the white oak. I think about the key my father swore he lost. No, I say. I have no idea who they are. I vacated the premises and surrendered possession 2 weeks ago. As far as I am concerned, they are trespassers. Understood, Henderson says, his tone shifting from administrative to enforcement. We have zero tolerance for unauthorized access to corporate assets. I'm dispatching private security and notifying the Chicago Police Department immediately. We'll handle it. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I hang up. I pick up my glass of Rioja and take a long, slow sip. The wine tastes excellent. It takes exactly 3 hours for the fallout to cross the Atlantic. I spend that time sitting in the plaza, ordering another glass of wine and a plate of manchego cheese, watching the moon rise over the Teatro Español. I don't check Instagram. I don't need to. I know exactly what is happening in Chicago. Private security teams for billion-dollar corporations don't knock politely and ask you to keep the noise down. They breach. They secure. And then they hand you over to the police. When my phone finally rings, it isn't a notification. It is a FaceTime request from my father. Richard. I prop the phone up against the napkin holder and accept the call. The image that fills my screen is chaotic. My parents are in their car. The interior dome light, casting harsh shadows on their faces. My mother, Cynthia, is sobbing into a tissue. My father looks like he is about to have a stroke. His face is a mottled purple, veins bulging in his neck. "What have you done?" he screams. He doesn't say hello. He doesn't ask how I am. He just launches the grenade. "What have you done to your sister?" "I haven't done anything," I say, my voice calm, contrasting sharply with his hysteria. "I'm in Madrid. Dad. Remember, don't play games with me." "Morgan," he roars. "Tiffany is in jail. They arrested her. They put her in handcuffs and dragged her out of the loft like a common criminal in front of all her friends. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? She was live streaming." "I know," I say. "I watched it. It was very entertaining, until she ruined the floors." My mother lets out a wail that sounds like a wounded animal. "How can you be so cruel?" she sobs. "She called us from the police station. She's terrified. They charged her with criminal trespass and destruction of property. They're treating her like she broke in." "She did break in," I reply. "She entered a property she didn't own, using a key that was supposed to be lost. To throw a party without the owner's permission. That is the definition of breaking in." "It was a misunderstanding," my father yells, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. "She thought it was your house. If you had just told us you sold it, none of this would have happened. You set her up. You laid a trap for your own sister." I stare at the pixelated image of my parents, marveling at the mental gymnastics required to reach that conclusion. In their minds, the crime wasn't Tiffany stealing my home. The crime was me not warning her that the home was no longer available to be stolen. They aren't mad that she did it. They are mad that she got caught. I didn't set a trap, I say. I moved. I sold my asset. I moved on with my life. The fact that Tiffany assumed she was entitled to occupy my space the second I looked away isn't my fault. It's yours. You taught her that everything I have is hers for the taking. "We don't have time for your psychoanalysis," Richard snaps. "We are at the station now. The bail is set at $5,000 because of the property damage charge. We need you to wire the money immediately. And we need you to call the owners, this Tech Fusion or whatever, and tell them to drop the charges. Tell them you gave her permission and forgot to tell them. Fix this. Morgan." The demand hangs in the air, heavy and poisonous. $5,000. That is roughly the cost of the custom furniture Tiffany likely destroyed during her arrest. They don't want an apology. They want a bailout. They want me to lie to my employer, risk my new job, and commit perjury to save Tiffany from the consequences of her own narcissism. "No," I say. My father blinks, as if the connection just cut out. "Excuse me." "No," I repeat. "I'm not wiring you $5,000. And I am certainly not calling Tech Fusion to lie for her. Tiffany is an adult. She committed a crime. She can pay her own bail." "We don't have $5,000 liquid right now," Cynthia shrieks, her sorrow instantly replaced by rage. "We tied up our cash in the investment for the lake house. You have the money. You just sold the loft for almost $1 million. You're rich. And you're letting your sister rot in a cell. The money from the sale is for my future," I say. "It isn't a legal defense fund for intruders. If you don't have the cash, maybe Tiffany can sell some of those designer bags she loves to show off on Instagram. I hear the resale market is booming." "You vindictive little..." My father's voice drops to a low, dangerous growl. "If you don't send that money..." "Morgan!" Don't bother coming home. You are dead to us. Do you hear me? You are destroying this family. I think Tiffany did a pretty good job of that tonight. I say. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call before he could reply. My hand was shaking not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying what I'd held back for 10 years. I blocked their numbers. Then Tiffany's. And breathed in the Madrid night air. I knew this wasn't over. Narcissists don't accept no. They escalate. Still, for that moment, the silence felt earned. I stayed in the plaza, watching tourists pass, feeling the echo of my father's rage. The threat "you are dead to us" hung in the air. Exile is their ultimate weapon. But once you accept it, you become untouchable. I knew my parents were already rewriting the story, calling family in Boston and Chicago, casting me as the villain who betrayed her sister. I couldn't stop them from lying to the family, but I could stop them from lying to the world. I pulled up the HUD-1 settlement statement, highlighted the date, sale price, and buyer Tech Fusion Global Corp., and paired it with Tiffany's Instagram post, claiming ownership. I posted both images with one calm, factual caption, stating the property had been sold weeks earlier and that any current claim was fraud. I tagged Tiffany for accuracy, not spite, and hit post. The reaction was immediate. Her supporters saw the receipts. Questions replaced praise. I said nothing, the document spoke for me. When my mother called again, I sent her a screenshot of the post with one line: "The truth is public. Don't lie to the family, or I'll send them this too." She never replied. I thought that would end it. I underestimated the extinction burst. 2 days later, HR summoned me. My parents had emailed Tech Fusion's ethics, legal, and visa teams, accusing me of fraud, mental instability, and abandoning my sister, trying to get me fired and deported. I was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I didn't panic. I called Mr. Henderson in Chicago and told him to check his email. My parents had put their lies in writing, admitting motive and identity. Henderson laughed once and said, "I'm calling legal." The next morning, Tech Fusion's legal director played the recorded calls my parents had made to HR. Their voices were frantic, demanding my visa be revoked so they could reclaim the property. Legally, it was a confession, trespass, and tortious interference. Tech Fusion didn't fire me. They sued my parents and Tiffany for defamation, interference, and damages. Papers were already served. 6 months later, the case was over. My parents sold their house to pay the settlement. Tiffany pled no contest to trespass. Her influencer career collapsed overnight. I didn't ruin their lives. I stepped aside and let their actions do the work. I blocked my parents' numbers for the final time, took a sip of coffee on my Madrid balcony, and tasted freedom.